Welcome to Silver Bar Stacker, folks. I hope everybody's doing well and enjoying their Sunday. That's right, folks. Today is Sunday, and we've got a very interesting show for you today, folks. That's right. Today, we're going to be spending time talking a little bit about fractional silver, and we're going to hyper-focus a little bit today, and not just talk about any fractional silver, but specifically, we're going to focus on Johnson Matthey fractional silver. And so I've got, a nice assortment. I wouldn't say of every example of a Johnson Matthey fractional silver bar that's out there, but I've got a nice selection of a variety of different fractional pieces for us to take a look at. And some of them might be common pieces that you've kind of seen many times before, and others might be unique pieces, maybe something that you've never seen before. So I'm excited to kind of take a look at everything from the more common pieces to the more rare pieces, and we'll kind of take a closer look at each of these items. And so stick around with us. We'll try to not make this too long of a video, but of course we do have quite a few pieces to go through, and so let's just get right into it. Okay, so let's kick things off. You see an assortment of gold as well as silver here, and so I'm thinking maybe it might be best to start with one of the more interesting things that you see in front of us, and that would be this entire factory sealed set of sequential serialized bars. Now, this is maybe something that you've seen on the SBS website before, maybe not this in particular, but you've seen a full set of sealed bars before, right? The 1 ounce silver bars by Johnson Matthey, for example, those come in full sealed sets like this, but those differ in appearance slightly. If you actually pay close attention to how the full sealed sets work, they're different, right? So this one right here is actually a full sealed set of 5 gram bars, believe it or not. This is very, very uncommon. I've honestly never seen an entire set of 5 gram bars sequentially sealed and preserved like this. It's the only time I've honestly ever seen something like this. I've seen a sheet of 1 gram bars, also factory sealed, just kind of like this. I think that was also a set of 20 bars. And so I think Johnson Matthey, they typically used to seal these bars in sets of 20 like this, in sheets of 20. And so you got sheets of 25 gram bars, you got the sheets of 21 gram bars, and even on our website we regularly have available, because we got blessed with quite a few sheets of 20 sequential serialized 1 ounce bars, and those are actually priced very, very reasonably on our site. This set of 20 sequential 5 gram bars is not available on our site because it's the only example that I have, and quite frankly, it's just for my personal stack, right? If I were ever to come across maybe multiples of these by some chance of luck, then I might be able to have something like this, available as a regular product on our store. But unfortunately, this is something that is very, very difficult to come by. And something that's actually different about the sheets of 25 gram bars and 1 gram bars and how that kind of differs from the 20x 1 ounce bars, is that the 20x 1 ounce bars will come in actually rows of 5. So you'll have 4 rows of 5, whereas this has 5 rows of 4. So it's actually a little bit of a longer and narrower sheet of bars on this 5 gram sheet. And I can't recall exactly if the 1 grammer sheet of bars looks similar to this, or if it looks similar to the 1 ounce bars. I'll have to kind of confirm that. I don't, so I'm not gonna definitively state that because I don't remember off the top of my head. But this is what the sheet of 5 gram bars, and the reason I'm looking at the 5 gram bars and starting with this is not just because it's a ridiculously cool thing that it's factory sealed in a set of 20 sequential serials. That's very, very amazing in and of itself. But the reason I also started with this 5 gram bar is because this 5 gram bar, there's actually a few varieties of this. There's one that has kind of like a thicker font that's a little bit more rare, but when we're talking about just kind of the normal 5 gram bars, you got one with the logo back, which is like this. Okay, this is 100,000 minted. Each bar of these, there's only 100,000 about them out there. So essentially, well, I mean, if I break out my handy dandy calculator, because I am one of those types of people who never like to do mental math. So you got 100,000 units and you're dividing that by a sheet of 20. There's only 5,000 full sheets that were out there to begin with, okay? But on top of that, how many sheets of these do you think are still intact? Very, very few in my opinion, because I see these 100,000 minted 5 gram bars pop up on eBay and everywhere, many times in the original factory seal, but as solo bars. I rarely even see a set of 2 sequentials. So my thinking is that most of these bars have been taken out of the seal. There are 5,000 sealed sets to begin with at most, and since then, I would say probably a vast majority of them have probably been, because I personally never seen one like this. Now, the 5 gram bars, they come in that logo back, but they also come in this blank back as well. So here you got both examples of the 5 gram bars. Both of these in the original factory seal, but obviously taken out of that sheet. One's got a little bit of a crack in it, but this one's got a blank back with the border, and this has got the hammer logo back. Both of these, 100,000 minted here, 100,000 minted here. So there's 200,000 of these out there, and so yeah, 100,000 is a pretty low mintage. I mean, you look at a prospect around that's any year is only 75,000 minutes. So these 5 gram bars are only a little bit less rare than that. And then you compare it to like a standard large E logo bar or any of those portrait style E logo 1 ounce bars by Engelhard, and this is at least 4 times rarer. One of these is at least 4 times rarer. And so these will probably regularly sell at like the $30 to $35 range is what I've noticed. They used to go even a little bit cheaper than that. They used to kind of go in the $25 range, I would see pretty regular. But now I would say that the kind of the premiums have kind of gone up. If the lowest that you can kind of manage to get these is like 30 to 35, and if you can get them for lower than that, then I personally feel that it's quite a good deal. Now, if you look at the melt value of a gram of silver, it's probably less than $1 or something like that. So somebody to pay $25 for, or $35 or $25 for a 5 gram bar, it's quite a bit of money. But you know, you're only going to find these things for, you know, 15, 20, $25 at the appropriate price of silver if you get lucky at a local coin shop or something like that, is quite frankly all I got to say, because generally speaking the actual market value of these is closer to the $30, $35 range. And so I'm actually going to probably discount, since we do have a few of these in stock, I'll probably discount the price of these on the silverbarstacker.com website. I'll probably reduce the price of both of these varieties, and you can, if you want to just grab one of each example or whichever one you want, I'll probably reduce the price to about $35. So you can go ahead and grab one of those if you want, but this is what the most kind of common fractional piece. If you're trying to get your feet wet with Johnson Matthey fractional, I would say that the 5 gram bar is a good place to start, because this is going to be the most accessible. It's the highest mintage, so it's the lowest premium, you know. And now let's talk about how mintage impacts premium. Okay, what are we looking at over here? This is the same exact bar as this, but instead of it being 5 grams, it's a single gram. And so one might think, okay, well, a single gram should run me, you know, if I'm actually looking for the cheapest, then maybe I should go for the single gram instead of the 5 gram bar. Well, you know, you might expect that for a gram of silver, you wouldn't have to cough up, you know, $25, $30 or whatever. But in reality, actually, this will cost you even more than that, because these 1 gram bars, instead of being 100,000 minted, there's only actually 10,000 of these out there. So it's a very, very tiny bar, and it's actually serialized too. This is in the original factory seal, and it's serialized. It's got an F prefix, so they have different letter prefixes too on these 1 gram bars, and these are estimated at a mintage of 10,000. So 10,000 of these, and then 100,000 of those 5 gram bars, and 100,000 of those. So 200,000 versus 10,000, and so because of that, this doesn't generally sell at like a $35 premium or a $25 premium. This actually generally sells at closer to like $50 to $100 premium. No joke, you know, kind of. Sometimes it depends on the serial number, sometimes it depends on if it's in the original factory seal, sometimes it depends on many different factors, right? This is a very low liquid item, meaning there's not a lot of these out there in the market, right? We have these actually available on our site, because I actually was able to find somebody who was selling off quite a few back when these were a little bit more reasonably priced, but now these things run, you know, at least $50. So I have these available on my site. I have these available on my site. At least I just reduced the price down to $50. So if you are trying to get your feet wet with one of these more obscure, harder to find fractional pieces, this is still kind of on the lower end of the premium spectrum, believe it or not. It sounds crazy to say that, but you know, if you're just trying to get an example of something, then it's an easy way to do it. I wouldn't say it's necessarily worth the melt value for sure. You're never going to recover the premium when you're talking about melt value. Like if you were to trade that into an LCS, they'll just give you the melt value of a gram of silver, which is probably short of $1, right? So these types of fractional pieces, any type of fractional piece really ends up going down into collecting territory, because practically speaking, who the heck is actually collecting fracs from a practical standpoint? That's not a thing. I mean, there are people who might say they're doing that, but in reality, that's not a very practical thing, actually, in my opinion. Obviously, it's my opinion. So, in my opinion, fracs are just kind of more for collecting. So this is your 1 gram 10,000 minted bar, and these are your 5 gram 100,000 minted bars for a total of 200,000 mintage across each of them. Now here, you've got yourself a half ounce. This is a half ounce, and it's got a blank back. I think the half ounce also might have come in the logo back. I think the half ounce, there might even be a very rare one that has a border around it with the blank back, and that's very low mintage. But this one right here is even still twice as rare as this 1 gram bar. This is only 5,000 mintage. So if you find a half ounce bar that has a blank back, that's going to be a 5,000 minted bar. And so we actually have these on the website too. I reduced the price down to $100 for these, which again seems like a lot for a half ounce of silver, but you have to factor in the mintage. It's quite a difficult to find bar. You don't see a lot of these half ounce JM bars pop up. You'll see the 1 ounce bars pop up all the time, and you know why that's the case? Because those are 1 million minted. 1 million versus 5,000 minted. Can you comprehend the difference in the mintage? You have $1 million here, and you got $5,000 here. There's very much less dollars here. You can actually conceive how much $5,000 is, maybe even. $1 million is almost hard to conceive what that would kind of look like for most people, you know? So this right here is a 5,000 minted half ounce Johnson Matthey bar with a blank back. So this is kind of going to be your selection of a little bit more common silver Johnson Matthey pieces. Now, if you're kind of going into the more higher premium silver pieces, now take a look at this. I've got a set of bars here actually, and this is, you'll note on the top, JM and M. So JM and M I've talked about on the channel before. JM and M stands for Johnson, Matthey, and Mallory, and so Johnson, Matthey, and Mallory stuff is a lot more rare. It's a lot more difficult to come by, and so these 10 gram and 20 gram bars that I've picked up, they're not serialized, and they rarely pop up, and when they pop up, they people got to fight over them, right? So I fought over them, and I ended up coming out the victor. I had to pay a pretty penny for these bad boys, but I came out the victor because now I'm able to show them to you. The 10 gram and the 20 gram Johnson, Matthey, and Mallory fractional bars. Now, moving on to even higher premium, we looked at a 10 gram, we looked at a 20 gram. Now, let's look at another 1 grammer. So, as if the $50 premium wasn't ridiculous enough on a freaking 1 gram silver bar, now we're looking at probably one of the most expensive bars I've ever bought, and it's a funky looking one too because it's ultra toned up, but it's an example that I needed to have. Now, Royal Bank, if you know anything about SBS loves his Canadian bank bars, and that has to do with many different things. I generally do not prefer banks. I do not it's a necessary evil is the way I kind of look at them, and so it's kind of like a weird thing. Like, I don't like to rely on banks, though I do have to many times, but I do like to bank with tangible assets. And so why not self-bank with bank bars? And so it's kind of a weird, kind of funny thing that I like to do, a quirky collector quirk, I guess you could call it. And I like the bank bars. And so when it comes down to the bank bars, the Canadian bank bars, there's Royal Bank, which is exclusively produced by Johnson Matthey. Then you've also got TD Bank and Scotiabank stuff. Now the TD Bank and the Scotiabank stuff, that was made by both Johnson Matthey and Engelhard. So I would say out of those three banks, I've kind of grown to like the Royal Bank stuff probably the most because I just love that beautiful stamp there on the back. That royal stamp is such an intricate design, And I think that that's probably out of the TD Bank, the Scotia Bank, and the Royal Bank bars, the Royal Bank would have to be my absolute favorite. I find it to be a very beautiful bar, and so I was very, very happy to be able to grab this example of a silver 1 gram Royal Bank bar, or a wafer, as we like to call them. Now, we've covered silver, but we see gold pieces here as well. And in fact, there's a little Scotia Bank, while we were just talking about Canadian bank bars, there's a little Scotia Bank frac right there. So let's take a look at that one first. Right here, we've got a 5 gram gold bar. And this one was also, I was telling you there's Engelhard and there's Johnson Matthey for Scotiabank and TD Bank. Well, I don't know of any actually Engelhard Scotiabank gold bars that are the 5 gram variety. There might be some out there, but I've never seen one. I know that there's larger, like 1 ounce and larger gold bars that were produced for Scotiabank by Engelhard, and there's also silver bars. But I'm not sure really about the 5 gram gold bar. I've only ever seen the 5 gram gold bar in the Johnson Matthey variety. This is another serialized bar, but it was produced, instead of Royal Bank, it was produced by Johnson Matthey for Scotiabank, and this is a 5 gram gold bar. The only other person I know who has one of these might be Stack That Gold, might have one of these bad boys. Now, Stack That Gold, I believe, used to work for Scotiabank, and so it's very fitting that he likes probably to collect the Scotiabank pieces. Now, over here, let's start with the more common. We went through one of the very, very rare Johnson Matthey gold pieces, but let's back things up a little bit and focus on the smallest and the, I guess you could call this the most common. This right here is a 1 gram bar. So we just saw a 1 gram silver bar. Let's look at the size difference between a 1 gram gold bar. You can see the size difference, and that's because you've got gold, which is a lot more dense, so you got a smaller bar and likely a thinner bar even. Might be hard to tell, but possibly a thinner bar and a smaller bar on the gold variety, both 1 gram. So there you've got a 1 gram factory sealed 4/9 fine gold bar as opposed to a 3/9 fine silver bar. And then here I've got some very nice treats for you. These are very, very, very difficult to come by. And on top of that, I've got in the original factory seal. So one step up from the 1 gram and below the 5 gram bar that we just looked at, therein lies your 2.5 gram and your 1/10 ounce gold bars. So your 2.5 gram is going to be 2.5 times bigger, obviously, than a 1 gram bar. And then right here you got a 1/10 ounce, which is going to be just over 3 grams, about 3.1 grams right there. So this is a very nice little sub-fractional set that will be under your 5 gram variety. And now we looked at a 1 gram. Ooh, we got quite a bit of blur happening. So let's unblur ourselves. Hopefully this works. And then what ends up happening is that instead of this 1 gram gold, we've also got a 1 gram Royal Bank gold wafer. So we looked at the silver wafer, but we've also got a 1 gram Royal Bank gold wafer, and this also is serialized, believe it or not, there on the back. So you've got silver, you've got gold. And these are basically carbon copies of each other. They pretty much look identical. It's just that one is silver and one is gold. So that's very exciting for me because, as I said, I'm a big collector of the bank bars. So for me, that makes me very happy. Now, finally over here, speaking of bank bars, right here is a TD Bank 5 gram gold wafer. So here we're getting to very, very rare variations of fractional Johnson Matthey pieces. And take a look at that serial number as well, 000661. Very low serial number. So that's really exciting. Now, I would say one of my favorite and possibly one of my highest premium, or I would say probably the highest premium fractional Johnson Matthey gold piece that I probably have, it's probably going to be this bad boy. So we looked at the 10 gram and the 20 gram variations of the silver Johnson Matthey and Mallory bars, right? Well, on top of that, we've also got a gold variation in the 5 gram variety. Look at this. Isn't that interesting? You got a 10 gram bar and a 20 gram bar, And actually, the face of the 5-gram gold bar, you would think it would be tiny, right? You would think it would be tiny, but actually, in reality, it's actually it's almost bigger. The face is possibly bigger than the 10-gram silver bar, and the reason is because these silver bars are thick. These are very thick, whereas this gold bar is much thinner. You see that? So your 5-gram face on the gold bar is actually bigger than your 10-gram silver bar, which is crazy, because we just literally finished comparing a gold and a silver bar of the same size, where the gold bar was much tinier. So it's really funny they switched things up here, JM and M, when it came down to these little chunky McChunkersons. So I'm really excited to be able to share all these fractional examples with you. I hope you had a good time. Of course, we don't have all of these items for sale. You might have 1 or 2 of these items, these more obscure items for sale, if we do happen to have a couple of them in stock or something like that. But definitely we have a promotion now running on the more common varieties of the Johnson Matthey fractional pieces, because we're doing a video on them, right? I'm telling you about them, so now that I've told you about them, I can't just be like, hey guys, check out all this cool stuff. A lot of YouTubers will do that, but like, hey, check out all this cool stuff, and then it's just like, okay, well, thanks. Now I know about the cool stuff, but I want the cool stuff now. So if you want a little bit of the cool stuff, we have some of the more reasonably priced cool stuff available. We got the 1-gram bars available, we got the 5-gram bars available with both different reverses, and we also got the half-ounce bar available. Now, I might have probably most of them going to have 1-gram bars available. I don't have a huge stock of the half-ounce and the 5-grammer. So if you do want those, be sure to act a little bit quicker on those, because I'm not going to have too many of those at the promo price. But I will have quite a few of the 1-gram bars, I would say. So if you want to grab any of those this week, we'll run a promotion on those. Feel free to grab them. Add some Johnson Matthey fractionals to your collection. And if that's not your thing, if you don't like JM, cool. No worries. There's a bunch of other stuff on the website, and we'll definitely be covering some other topic. Maybe we won't cover fractionals maybe next week, and we'll cover some other topic next week, and maybe that'll be more up your alley. Now, if anybody is interested in grabbing a deal, of course, as is always the plan, we're going to be shifting over the party to our Silver Bar Stacker Whatnot account. So that will be whatnot.com/user/Silver Bar Stacker. So if you want to grab some deals and steals, we're going to be having a nice mystery box auction event over there, and we'll have a lot of goodies. Maybe you can grab a steal, or maybe you will get tricked into, something that you weren't really gunning for. That's the fun of the mystery box auction. So go ahead and join us there if you'd like to. Don't have to participate. You could just be a spectator and watch and see how things run. And in the meantime, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you all next Sunday. Cheers.